Well, let me then change the tone for a moment and tell you a story about a restaurant that my wife and I attend. The food is very good. The prices are unfortunately spectacular. The tables are quite close to each other, and my wife and I have occasionally engaged in, unfortunately, listening to the conversation at the next table. And the last time we were there, we saw two people, a young man and a young woman, and the young woman said, "You know, this has been one of the most wonderful evenings of my life." And the young man said, "You know what? I think I've got one more thing we could do that could make it even just a little bit better." The young woman said, "Really? What is that?" I fear that my wife and I were leaning forward because we really wanted to hear this conversation. And he said, "Well, I've forgotten my wallet. I'd really like you to pay the bill." And, you know, that's kind of a fact of life, that we're looking sometimes for other people to pay the bill. I work over in the state legislature. There are two types of people over there who you know, one of them are public servants, elected officials, and they try to write laws for the public interest to serve the public. There's another group there, registered lobbyists, and a big part of their job is to figure out who can we get to pay the bill. Let me tell you a story about a registered lobbyist who worked to change our tax system. That lobbyist decided that you know, we have a problem with our impact fees, and we need to substitute a real estate transfer tax to that. He actually testified at the hearing that impact fees were useless, that they weren't bringing in the type of revenue that they needed. He worked with a consultant that said a real estate transfer tax might even bring in more revenue, and that was one reason to support a real estate transfer tax. And you've probably guessed which registered lobbyist I'm talking about. His name is Jeremy Hutchinson. His employer suggested that in the papers that he helped distribute that we might even add this tax to the regular fee. The people who employed Jeremy Hutchinson to lobby thought that it could be a tax increase. Well, what we do know is that if you look at the evidence today, a real estate transfer tax is going to stay there even when prices fall, even when we're in the situation that we're here in Saline County. Real estate transfer tax is going to raise taxes on us. And that's simply an example of lobbyists getting someone else to pay the bill. I agree with Jeremy. None of us is without fault. I'd also say it's perfectly legitimate for me to criticize Jeremy and for Jeremy to criticize me, as has already taken place throughout the campaign. And I certainly don't feel that one of us is more at fault than the other in that respect. And so there's nothing wrong with spirited debate. There's nothing wrong with drawing conclusions. There's nothing wrong with drawing distinctions. And I do think that there is a real question as to whether we need a registered lobbyist to be our next state senator. State representatives and state legislators have a history, or have an attempt, or at least I try, to work for the public interest, to serve the people, to make sure that we satisfy what the people need. Registered lobbyists work for their masters, they work for special interests. The special interests write them their paycheck, and they're looking to see how we can figure out how to make someone else pay the bill. And so I think there's a real question as to who would be better, someone with a history of being a registered lobbyist, or someone with a history of public service. And I'll tell you right now, I understand how that business works. I understand how lobbying works. I am never going to become a lobbyist. Thanks.